Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another true scary story. Tonight's story is called Surf and Turf. My wife Shelley and I moved into a new house several years ago. It was a fixer-upper, as remodeling and redecoration were our hobbies. The house sat on an extensive property that also contained a broken-down barn and was close to a lake down the road. I began having strange dreams around the same time. I would not classify them as nightmares, since they were not particularly horrifying, just strange. One dream occurred repeatedly. A noise would wake me. I would rise from bed to investigate and peer through a doorway at a boy's silhouette. I would follow him through the house and out the front door. The boy led me to the barn, sometimes stopping at a tree to play on its swing. I could not make out his face, but I heard him sob as he swung. I would attempt to console him, but the closer I stepped towards the boy, the further away he somehow got. He would then jump off the swing and run into the barn. I would not follow, choosing instead to return home. He pressed his hands and face against the window pane, asking me to come out. I would run up to bed, pulling the covers over my head to avoid hearing his pleas. His cries would grow louder until I woke in a cold sweat. After having this dream 3 nights in a row, I told my wife about it. She informed me of having a recurring dream since we moved into the house herself. In my wife's dream, a rapping at the living room window would wake her. She would find a young girl at the window, beckoning her to come outside. My wife would walk out the front door. The girl stood at the end of the driveway, asking her to come along. My wife would follow the girl down the road until she found herself at the beach. The girl was floating in the water, sobbing. My wife wanted to help, but the girl would end up further out with every step she took towards her. That night, we both woke to the sound of tapping. It was coming from the attic right above our bedroom. After verifying that I was not having another dream, I investigated its source. We accessed the attic through an opening above our bedroom closet. Using a chair to reach the panel, I pushed it open. I poked my head up through the opening and shined a light around. There was nothing besides cobwebs. A door slammed. Footsteps moved along the hallway and down the stairs. I closed the panel to the attic and ran down, flashlight in hand and my wife following. Now on the main floor, we heard footsteps running down to the basement. My wife began turning on all the lights in the living room and kitchen. I grabbed a large knife and flicked the switch for the basement. I followed with a command for whoever was in the house to show themselves and walk up the steps, slowly. No one responded. I then declared I was placing a call to the police and asked my wife to hand me the phone. She put a finger up to her mouth, instructing me to be silent. I heard children whispering and giggling. My wife and I crept down the stairs, the sounds becoming louder the closer we got to the bottom. As soon as I took the last step down, the whispering and giggling stopped. We checked the entire basement, but found nothing out of the ordinary. My wife and I both had trouble getting back to sleep as we kept alert for any more strange noises. A week passed without one irregularity. The 8th night was a different story, however. Slamming doors woke us in the middle of the night this time. I jumped out of bed and ran into the hallway. Despite being left open, all the upstairs doors were now closed. I then heard footsteps make their way from the living room into the kitchen. I told my wife to stay in the bedroom, close the door behind me, and lock it. Someone or something began making an awful racket by clanging together pots and pans in the kitchen. I ran downstairs and turned on the light. The cabinet doors and drawers were all open. Pots and pans were not only strewn about, but also utensils, cans, and boxes of dry goods too. The kitchen was a mess. I heard the whispering and giggling outside the back door. I opened it, but again, no one was there. However, I did hear movement headed towards the barn. I grabbed a flashlight and knife and took off in its direction. Like in my dream, there was a part of me that didn't want to enter the barn, but run back to the house and hide under the covers. However, I pushed the door open and searched every square inch with the flashlight, but located nothing. When I returned to the house, I found my wife in the bedroom trembling. She said that while I was in the barn, she looked out our bedroom window and saw the silhouette of a girl standing on the road. The girl began running towards the lake. Ever since that night, from time to time, we think we hear the sound of whispering and giggling come from the basement. That, however, is the extent of any activity that could be construed as paranormal. A year ago, I was conversing with a local shopkeeper in town. When I told him where I live, he informed me that a couple lived in the same house 50 years before. They had 2 children, one boy and one girl, who went missing under mysterious circumstances. Back then, people around town believed the couple had something to do with the disappearances. Ever since, I have wondered what could be buried under the barn or the lake.